Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of Alexa Skills Summer Camp. And we'll just get started in a couple of minutes. Um, let's see. We have Shishwant here, Jay Spare Money is here, Varsha is here, Himanshu Marwa is here, Harsh Mangukia is here, Rishabh is here. Hey, JV Nan is here. Good evening, everyone. So we'll get started in a couple of minutes or so. Sanjila Mathur is there. Hey, Sanjila. Hi, Venkat. Yes, I'm excited for today's session as well. We are going to be talking about GameOn SDK, which is this really cool thing. Um, yeah, that lets us build game skills or leaderboards. Really cool stuff, and that's what we'll be talking about today. Andrea's clone is here. Doesn't look like anything to me though. Okay. Hi Manvi, I'm doing well as well. Ice cream course is here. Rishabh asked, should we just copy today's code right now? No, I posted the links to whatever I'm going to be doing today earlier in the Slack channel because I keep seeing messages that there are, people are asking for links, but I just posted it beforehand so that you can experiment with it. Uh, if you want to test it out, copy it, do it. But I would rather suggest let's go through it together, and you also understand what we are going to be doing today. I am wearing my cool Alexa developer hoodie, and yeah, been a while since I wore this. Sharan Narayanan is here as well. Hey Sharan. Uh, so yeah, let's get started, folks. So just a couple of things before we get started. So yeah, I have posted the links to whatever links I'll be using today all on the Slack channel, right? So just make sure you're going to the Slack channel and clicking on this pinned items here, and you'll just see all the links here, all the links that I'm going to be using here today. Okay, sounds good. So let me get started today. Then, so I had a couple of call outs to make before we get started. Yes, this is a limited edition hoodie, uh, Andrea. And yeah, so before we get started, I know this is COVID time, but we do have these communities that are around in India, and I'm pretty sure most of you are part of these communities. But in case you are not part of these communities, I just wanted to talk about them a bit. So we have roughly around 12 communities, and all of these are Amazon Alexa enthusiasts, folks who are building on top of Alexa. And one of our top communities is Alexa Community Bengaluru. We have a community for Chennai, Mumbai, Pune, Ahmedabad, Nashik, and Delhi, and what else? I think we have Delhi, Nashik, Pune. Let me think about it. There's one in Coimbatore, there's one in Kochi. Uh, yeah, so all the metros, even one going to start soon in Kolkata. So we have a lot of Alexa communities, and what these communities are basically folks like you and me who are interested in building something on top of Alexa coming together, and they have meetups from time to time. Now, I've shared these links here. If you are from one of these cities, just go on to meetup.com and search for your city meetups. If not, just sign up for one of those meetups nearby. While we won't be having any events, any offline events for some time this year, it definitely looks like that, but we will be having the communities around India are planning a lot of events, online events, upcoming, right? So in the next month or so, we will have a hackathon as well. We'll be having a hackathon, and we'll have some webinars as well. So make sure you're signing up to these communities. You can just go to meetup.com and search for those links. I'll be updating the links with the rest of the communities out here as well, right? And yes, we have a lot of hackathons coming around, and yeah, that's what we'll be do go and join them. The next thing, I keep seeing requests for, hey, how do I make a skill from scratch to end, right, and learn about this in more detail. So there are two links that I wanted to share with you. One is something called as Zero to Hero, and this is made by Andrea, who's in the stream as well, who's in the chat, or rather his bot. So he's made a really cool course along with Harman. It's called Zero to Hero, and it's a very comprehensive course on building an Alexa skill, and it's all available on YouTube. You can start from scratch, and I think should not be more than maybe 2 or 3 hours. I think, yeah, just give it 2 or 3 hours, and Andrea will take you through a list of all the things that you need to do in order to build a really good skill, right? So that is a link that I want you to test out. Zero to Hero Alexa Skills course. Just go and check it out. This is the link here, alexa.design/0 to hero. And apart from that, I have already shared this with you, which is alexa.design/cakewalk. If you're not in the mood for video and you want to go by step-by-step instructions, there's a cakewalk skill as well. Just start the course and just keep reading it, and you will be able to learn a bit of advanced coding, advanced skill development as well, right? Okay, so those are the callouts for today. And come say hi in the chat. Don't be shy. I know a lot of people are watching us, but don't feel shy. Just say hi in the chat. Always good to have people jumping in and being part of this community. I hope all of you have joined this Slack channel though, right? Now, let's get link to Slack. It's alexa.design/India Slack invite. If someone can just post it in the Slack. But yeah, it's very simple, alexa.design/India Slack invite. Yeah. Okay. Hi everyone. A lot of you coming in here. Okay. So yesterday I gave you a homework, or rather I gave you 2 homework, right? And the very first homework was, let's come back to the skill here. And the very first homework was, let me just pull that up. Right, so yeah, there we go. So the first question I had asked you was, well, how do you, let's say, so our idea was that we would have around 365 questions and the 365 answers for them, right? How do you make sure that whenever you go, whenever the user opens it up on the 4th day of the year or the 300th day of the year, they get the 300th item out of here, right? The 300th question from here, right? So that it's all the same. Right now in the code, if you notice, we have just passed on the 0th element, which means it will always send in the first question, right? Which is what has many keys but can't open a single lock. How do we make sure that this is coming in from, it's coming in dynamically, right? So I saw a lot of you try different unique responses, and that's what I'm going to talk about just for a couple of seconds. But yeah, I think one of the right ways to do that is, I think we had a solution. I'm not entirely sure by whom, but I guess it was by Yagesh Ojha. Basically, kind of finding something like this, which returns the day of the year, right? So this is a correct solution as well. You kind of get the date, and between now and the start of the date, you kind of get the difference, and you get the day of the year, and whatever is the value here, you will just pass it on to day, right? So that is how you would figure that out. Of course, for the time being, because I don't have that many questions for the time being, I'm just going to revert back to 0. But yes, that is how we would have the speech output, right? And I will be sharing this. This is a basic solution to calculate. Yes, yes, yeah, correct. Cocktails underscore guy. This is a basic way to calculate it, and yeah, that's how we will calculate this, right? So this was a right way to do it. There were some who tried doing some of those. Some of you even tried doing daylight savings. I'm not sure why, but some of you tried doing daylight savings inbuilt, which was kind of an oversell. But I think that was good. Whatever you tried, and so I'll just quickly take out some names. These are the people, and by the way, folks, I think a lot of you contributed to this homework. So it was really difficult for me to go through all these homeworks, but still I went through all of them. But I could just go through the first homework. I couldn't go to the second homework for a lot of you. So I'm just going to take a few names, and if you are one of those people, just message me with your mailing address, and I'll send you some goodies, right? Now, keep in mind that these goodies are going to come in a bit late, because I don't know when I'm going to be able to go to the office and when the lockdown will end. But yes, you all have earned yourself a goodie, right? So do give a round of applause for the winners, or rather the people who got the homework correct, right? So there is Ajit. So Ajit was someone who answered it correctly, and a lot of you answered it. But yeah, we have Ajit, Akash Agarwal, Eternal Dragon King. Wow, that's like a really cool username. And Elbon underscore 10, Himanshu, J Parmani, Kartik Kumar AC, Praveen Kumar, Priyanka Gupta, Raghu Sharma. I think this person's name was just Sharma, so I'm not sure if you have a full name, but that's the best thing I could get. Sohini Pattanayak also got this right. Venga Boys. That's like a really cool name, usernames people come up with. And of course, Yagesh, whose code I just showed you. Vikas and Lokesh Sukwal. So if you are one of these folks, congratulations, you get some really cool goodies that I'll send it across. Yeah, I know some of you did take it out from Stack Overflow, but what matters at the end of the day is that you putting in the efforts and getting it right. It's okay if you kind of got it from a different site, but that's perfectly fine. Yeah. But yes, good stuff, folks. Really good stuff. And then there's the other homework, and we'll not get into the other homework for a while now, because it's something to do with database as well, right? And a lot of you tried it out, and I want to give you some more time, because some of you reached out to me saying that, hey, I'm still having some issues doing this. So it's perfectly fine to take some more time. We'll discuss about it tomorrow. And what we are going to do today, so that's the homework for tomorrow as well. So do try the same homework, which is basically kind of making the skill more engaging and saving it to the database. Now just keep a couple of things in mind. I have very limited time here, almost like an hour every day, an hour and a half every day. So it's not possible for me to write the entire code end to end on the stream as well. So I'm not going to be doing all these answers, all these coding online, right? Some of this I might do it offline and then share it with you all. My purpose of this camp is not to teach you coding, but rather to teach you how things work with Alexa. And that's what we are going to focus on. We are just going to see different moving blocks, and I'm going to teach you those things. and you have to kind of fix them together and try different different stuff in there, and I will be giving you the resources, and we have a community to help you out. So you have to take these resources, stitch them together, and build something amazing, right? I'm not going to be doing the end-to-end stitching together here. It's on the stream, right? Okay, so yeah, so yesterday you got to know how to write something to the database and how to read something from the database, kind of pitch both of them together, and build the second part of the homework, which was basically trying to tell the user that, hey, if you have exceeded 3 questions for today, you are done for today. You are not going to be able to answer that riddle, right? So do try that out, and we'll see a more comprehensive answer tomorrow. Okay, I wanted to start with a basic function though, and this was a really good question that someone asked, is that, hey, I think I'm not sure who asked this question, but I had a thread here. Oh, Rajneesh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your response here. I've just checked the direct messages, but let's see. But yeah, so Rajneesh had this question where persistence to S3 API has a set method which replaces the entire content of the bucket, right? So that means if you were trying to update it with a new key, the entire JSON that was already there used to be wiped out, right? Is there a way to add or remove to deal with individual key or pair, right? So not really, but I kind of devised a method for that, and I'm going to show you how to do the methods, how to write that method. Let's just see what that method does, right? Okay, let me just open up the code for the time being. Yeah, so this is my code from yesterday. Don't worry about your goodie as well, Rajneesh. I'm pretty sure you might have got the question answer right. I will update it, but yes, do PM me with your address. Okay, let's get started. I just have some technical difficulties here. Let me just give me a minute. Okay, so yeah, so the very first question is, hey, how do I, and this was the kind of question, that was very important to answer, because say, for example, you are writing to the database, right? So this was the first time that everyone was writing to the database, but I'm pretty sure writing to the database is something that you are going to take every now and then, right? You are going to do that every now and then. So it kind of makes sense to kind of have all of this into a method rather than just writing the same code here and there everywhere. So we'll kind of make a method out of it, right? And while doing that, we'll also make sure that we are updating the key and not just overwriting it. So I just have some sample code here that I've already written that I'm going to bring it here. Okay. It almost feels like a cooking show where the chef already has some boiled pasta or stuff like that, and then they just merge it in. I just have some prepared code that I'm just merging it in. So, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I obviously don't have enough time to type all of these on the live stream. So I'm just I've already typed it out and I'm just showing it to you folks on how to use it, right? So what I have done here is I have created a new function called as save, right? And this takes in 3 new parameters. The first parameter is the handler input. The second parameter is the attribute that you want to save to the database. And this is the attributes that you want to delete from the database, right? So if you want to delete something from the database, it's perfect. You kind of keep these in the attributes to delete kind of key, right? And what this does is it returns a new promise. And finally, inside here, we do something like handler input dot attributes manager dot get persistent attributes, right? So this is basically the same code, which I think we had it here, right? Oh, it's not. Give me a second, folks. I think, yeah. This is why live streaming is really difficult. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so yes, I'm debugging the code line by line. So here's what we are doing. So handler input dot attributes manager dot get persistent attributes. We are getting the persistent attributes, and then inside in here, what we are doing is whatever is the attributes to save, whatever is the attributes that you want to save to the database, you are just adding it to the attributes array. You're just adding it to the attributes array, and if you wanted to remove one of them, you are removing it from the attributes to delete key. So if there was something that you passed in the attributes to delete key, it would be moved from the array. And if you wanted to add something to the array, you would send it to attributes to save, right? And now once these two things are done, what we are doing is we are setting the persistent attributes and we are saving the persistent attributes. Now this is something that we have already seen before. So it's the same 3 lines of code. This one, so line number 43, line number 53, and line number 55 are the same. But these are the 2 things that we've added where we are kind of saving things that we want to save, and we are deleting things that we don't want anymore, right? So what you can do here is you can kind of use this as a helper method, which you can kind of call all the time and save something to the database and delete something from the database, right? Rather than using those 3 lines everywhere throughout the code, right? So that's one way to do that, right? Okay, so I think right, is there a child intent or a follow-up intent concept? Rajneesh asked this question yesterday, and there is something that we call as delegate chaining, right? But I think your question was related to what would happen if you had another intent which also required questions like answers like yes, and how would you answer it. And I saw a couple of answers in there. Well, it depends on how you want to handle it. You can either use delegate chaining as well, in which you can chain from one intent to another, or what you can also do is you can use session attributes. You can just see, so say for example, if the user just came into the questions part and there was something set in the session that this user was in the questions intent, and then they went into a yes intent where you check the session attributes, and depending on what the session variable is, you kind of redirect them to the right intent, right? So yeah, that's how you can kind of do that. Yeah. Okay. That's I think all for now. So this is a save function, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to remove this, right? And I'm going to make this very simple. Just call it as save handler input, and then pass data to save, right? And then pass null. So then what will happen, excuse me, what would happen is the data to save gets saved in there, and if you don't have anything to remove from the data key, we just pass in a null value, and that's a way to handle that, right? Okay, yeah, so yeah, so that's one way to handle this, right? But yeah, so that's one way to handle it. Kind of you can use this method and write in your entire database's logic, handle it properly. The chances, the homework that we were talking about, you can kind of use this method every now and then, and try doing that, right? So I hope that answers your question, and this is a better way to deal with the database as well. So do try that out. All of this code is available in the Slack channel. Just click on the link and you will get started with that. Right. Sheshwant has a really good observation. Every day the number of viewers become half. Is Karthik really Thanos? I believe I'm not, but I think what's also happening is a lot of folks are watching these things offline, because online they are not able to make it to the time, and then they are coming back and watching it offline as well. So but yeah, I'm not Thanos, but yes, Let's get started with the next point. And I think I'm seeing a couple of questions here, but maybe I think someone else would, either Jeff or Andrea would answer it out. Let me proceed on to the next part in here, right? Which is, I'm just having a bit of technical issues here today, folks. General, right? Let's go to the link. Okay, and now what we are going to do here today, we are going to learn how to integrate leaderboard inside your skill, and rather kind of keep a mechanism or a tournament that you want to run where you kind of keep an idea of, hey, this person is right now on this, has this many points, so they are on the top number 1 of the leaderboard, someone is on the number 2 of the leaderboard, someone is on number 3rd, kind of making a leaderboard kind of a concept is what we are trying to go and build. Okay, now for this we are going to be using an SDK called as the GameOn SDK. So this is the GameOn SDK. So I'm just going to click on this link, which is the GameOn SDK setup. Let's click on this one. Yeah, Sanjula Mathur says, I watch it both online and offline. Believe me, I do that as well. Once I finish my stream, I kind of go back in and run it again just to see how I sound and all the tech checks and stuff like that. So I keep doing that. Anyways, okay. So now, first of all, I just clicked on this link. I went on to GameOn SDK. So you need an AWS account for this. Without an AWS account, you won't be able to do this. So just make sure you already have an AWS account. Now, once you have it, you need to go into your GameOn console, right? So what I'm going to do is I already have a GameOn account, but I'm going to do this with you from step by step. So let's just open it up. I'm going to open this link in a private option, right? Let me just log in here. Let me bring this out here. Okay, so once I sign up, this is what I see on the screen. This is what I would see on the screen. And there's an option here called as get API keys. There's an option here called as register game. So let's see what this says. It says to register your game, go to GameOn console, click get API keys or register new game. So let's go in here, click on register game here. Okay, nothing's happening. Let's click on get API keys. Yeah, so developer name is Karthik Raghubati and game title is Riddle Me Today. And folks, I also had another call out. I mean, if you have, I would really like to, I've been seeing a lot of you are trying to build a different type of game rather than a riddle skill, and I really appreciate that. That's really cool that you're just not copying what we are doing here, but trying to innovate and build something. We have a hackathon coming up. What I would like you to do is maybe anywhere on the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm on all the social media that all the cool kids are on, except I think on TikTok, which I guess I should join soon. I'm P. Karthikar everywhere. Tag me there, post what you are building or what you have been learning something from the skills camp. Post it on all these social networks or any of them and reach out to me. I would really like to hear from you what you are all building. So would really like to hear that from you all. So do post that on all the social media. My ID is P Karthikar. Easy to find and you'll know it's me. Okay, so now once I create a game and click on continue, it's going to ask me to set up my AWS account ID. So I'm going to click on sign into AWS billing account and let me just take this to the other screen and log in here. My password is super secret password. I'm kidding, guys. That's not my password. Well, I think I forgot my password. Hey, I remembered my password. Okay, there we go. Right? Yeah, so once I log in here, I think what's going to happen is sign into AWS billing account. Let's do it. Yeah, I think what we need is we need the account ID. Provides the billing services, because AWS provides the billing services for GameOn. Please enter your AWS account ID. So how do I get that AWS account ID? I think it's somewhere here, right? I believe I did it just somehow. I think this is the account number, but I'm not too sure about it. Let's check. It says we are sending a verification code to your AWS account, so I might need my email ID here. So now what happens is, once you do that, there is a AWS billing setup. We have sent an GameOn verification code to your AWS account, and they do that into your S3 console. So what you need to do is go to your S3 console. So that the way to do that is go to AWS, click on this, and click on S3. So S3 is a media storage bucket. Remember, we are not into our AWS hosted S3 bucket. That is totally different, right? This is like a totally different AWS account that you need to have. The Alexa hosted one is a shared hosting one. So that's not something that you would have access to, right? Okay, so I think we are having a kind of an issue here. Okay, we have sent a GameOn verification code to your AWS account, but why can't I see them? Is this on? S3 does not require region selection. Okay, why am I not able to see this? That's really weird. Let's just try this. Maybe you might have this issue, so let's actually just try and figure out why we are getting this issue. Let's just put in testing. Sign into AWS. I do have admin access though, I believe, or do I not? Because this is my office email ID, so maybe I'm having an issue here. It's an AWS account. Maybe I'll just try it with a normal email ID, right? Let me just try it with a normal email ID with my other AWS account. I've just got a lot of these AWS accounts. Let me just take this offline again. Just going to do log in with another one. Let's try now. How about this? Yeah, so now I think what we need is billing. Let me just take the billing ID again, and let's see if I can get the billing ID. Services, billing. Yeah, I think I got the account ID. So let me do this with an account that has already worked. Okay, I'm just moving this off the screen because I just don't want my personal ID to show up. So now we are sending a verification code to your AWS account, and what I need to do here is go in here, go to S3, and proceed. You must have open button on this page to get the code. Right, Can anyone? Okay, so this is really weird. Uh, you must have admin access. This is really weird. Um, Click on the given link in the second point. This page, on this page. Oh yeah. Oh god. Yeah. So this is the problem with live streaming. You know, sometimes things are just not very straightforward. But yeah, I think there was a folder there which I totally missed. I don't know where it is created. It is nowhere created here. It doesn't show up here. But I had to click on this page. Oh wow. Yeah. Let's open this out. Good catch, Harsh. And who else found that out? Yeah, Akash also did it. Let me just copy this link and come back here, paste it. Right, and I'm going to. I know you folks can see my game ID and everything, and trust me, I'm just going to make sure that I'm going to delete this after this stream itself. But yeah, so my game is now ready. In fact, this is not the game that I wanted, so let's just close it and let's see if I can create a new game. Riddle me today, and let's see if it's going to ask me the same thing. So that's fine. I think let's just go with test for the time being, right? So now, once you have created a game, the next thing that you need to do here is, so let me just close this out. So we don't need anymore. So you just need to create a game, and I've already created a game in my GameOn console here. Okay, so I have another GameOn account, which is what we'll be using here. Where did the GameOn account go? Yeah, let's go into the GameOn console. Right, so I already have a game called as Riddle Me Today, right? And what we are going to do is we are going to go inside the Your Competitions option, and we are going to create a new competition. So the game that we are going to make, Riddle Me Today, what we are planning to do is it will have a weekly leaderboard, right? And what this weekly leaderboard will do is, like, from the start of this week till the end of this week, all the users who are giving the right answers, we will give them certain points, and at the end of the week we will see that, hey, this person has gotten like the top of this, like they have gotten like the top of this leaderboard, so they kind of win a special prize, or maybe just tell them that, hey, you are the winner for this week. And what that really does is kind of builds a gamification model into the skill, because I remember I play a lot of Fortnite here, and I'm a Fortnite fan, and it's really interesting and fun to play when you kind of want to come on the top 10, top 20, top 5, and finally getting a victory royale as well. Jeff Blankenberg is here. Hey Jeff, welcome to the stream. But yeah, so like I was talking about leaderboard, so I think leaderboards are a very essential part of the game, the entire game structure that we are trying to build. And we are going to start with building a weekly leaderboard, right? So let's see how to do that. What I'll do in here is I'll go to the create competition option, and let's call it a weekly puzzle, weekly riddler, okay, something like that. You can name it anything that you want. And then you can set a start date and end date. Maybe you can say something like, hey, this is going to go on from 19th to 25th. Now this is very important, because let's say your riddle is about Bollywood quiz. So maybe you can say that maybe there's a day called as World Pet Day, for example, right? And you want to call it the Pet Week Leaderboard Challenge, right? So you can kind of name that Pet Week Leaderboard Challenge and kind of ask folks questions about pets or dogs or cats, stuff like that. So this is why this is really useful and kind of makes a game really, really engaging as well, right? So this is the start date and the end date. Select the stat that will be used as the score for the leaderboard. We are going to go with score. So basically score is what the basically the points that the user is going to win, and choose how scores are ranked. So whether highest score wins or does the lowest score wins, right? So this is very important because in a game like a riddle, what's going to happen is if you answer it correctly in the first turn, you're going to get 10 points. And if someone has 5 points and you have 10 points, you are the winner. But in a game where you have like 3 chances to win something, and you use just one chance, whereas the other person used 2 chances, you are the person who won it because that's the score. You got it in less number of chances. So it's all about how you kind of take the score as. We are going to take scores as points. So every time you answer the question correctly, we are going to give a higher score point, right? And then you choose how winners are determined. You say that, hey, this is best score wins. And I'm going to go with this. It's perfectly fine if you don't want to kind of choose this countries option here. Keep it worldwide. The best part about that is build a skill that has all the other English locales at least, so that you can target to all the English speaking nations at the least. Right now, once you have done all these things, that's the minimum thing that you need. Just click on publish competition option here, and then what happens here is your competition, once it's published successfully, you can come into the view details option and you can come into your competitions. You can see all the competitions. So right now you are ongoing onto this competition, but yeah, upcoming is this. I think someone asked, will we need to set this up every week? Yes, you will need to set this up every week. Or maybe if you kind of want to have like a unlimited leaderboard, kind of create a start date and maybe an end date, which is like maybe 50 years or 100 years into the future. I mean, if you have a player who has outlived that, maybe you have really built a great game. So anyways, coming back to the point, this is our leaderboard now. This is how it looks like. Yeah, what we are going to do now is let's open up this one, right? So I have two competitions going on. So we have the weekly riddler, which I just created, but it starts on the April 19th. Okay, but for the purpose of this demo, I already had created something which is called as the weekly leaderboard, and we are going to call this weekly leaderboard. So all the users who come into our skill and they and they answer it correctly, they are going to get some points. And once they get some points, they will go into the skill, and here they will kind of keep coming up on the leaderboard, right? So I'm going to remove this users from here. So this is a very clean leaderboard right now at this point. So let's see how we can start with building a game on integration into our Alexa skill. Okay, so first of all, there is something called as this skills SDK. So the GameOn SDK folks, they have some helper files that can help you out with it, right? So like I mentioned, I'm not going to be writing the code because it's almost 300 lines of code that needs to be made and we need to work on. So there is a skills GameOn SDK, right? So I'm not going to write this, but here it is, right? github.com/Alexa games/skills GameOn SDK JS. Again, it's in the Slack channel. Just go in here, and once you go in here, you can click on this link. This link is where you will see all the methods and everything. There are a lot of methods and properties and all those things. Just look into that to understand more about this API, about this SDK. We are going to deep dive into this sample here. This sample is called as Word Lite, which is basically a word game, which is also available on Alexa. So you can just check that out as well. So let's go into the Word Lite. Go into the src folder, and here they have a file called as gameon.js, and I'm just going to use that today. Okay, I'm just going to copy it and come back here, go inside the lambda folder, create a file. I'm going to call it the gameon.js file, right? right? So what we are going to do here is let's come in here and go inside the gameon.js file. Let's open it up. gameon.js. This is the name of the file. And this is the code. Okay, so this entire code is a helper file that the SDK team already has ready for you, so you can just use it as it is, right? We are not going to worry about what is happening behind the scene, but we will go into the code for sure, right? So how you get to the code is by going into the word light folder, and there's an src folder, and go to gameon.js, right? Open the gameon.js file, right? Now once you are here, let's open up the code and understand what they are doing. Yeah, so the very first thing to do is they are doing something called as constant SDK is equal to require Alexa games dash slash skills dash GameOn SDK, right? So they are requiring the file. So we have to make sure that we are including that in our package.json. So let's come to our package.json first of all. We'll come to our package.json, and inside package.json, I need to add that library in there, right? Let's add that. Package.json. Yeah, where did that file go? So where's package.json? Yeah, here's package.json. In fact, we don't need all of this. We just need this one dependency, right? So we need to add onto our package.json the Alexa Games SDK, right? And this is how it looks like. Yeah, we have to add the Alexa Games SDK. Okay, so what we are going to do here is once we have added the Alexa Game Skills GameOn SDK, this is how you add it, @Alexa-game/skills GameOn SDK. Is the GameOn SDK also available for Python? I'm not sure because I'm not that much into Python, but I doubt there is an SDK.js for this thing. But I'm pretty sure, if you go in there, maybe they have an API which you can call, and that way you can kind of handle that, right? So yeah, so skills GameOn SDK.js. Let's come back to the file. Yeah, so this is what we need to add, the Alexa skills GameOn SDK. Very important. And once you add that, make sure you're saving it and make sure you're deploying it. And once you do that, let's come back to the code. And here on gameon.js, let's look at the code that is the helper file, right? So again, like I said, I'm not going to write this entire code, but we are going to go through this code step by step. Okay. So first of all, they have a file called as, so they are requiring the Alexa Games Skills GameOn SDK, right? The second is they are again creating another file. This is called settings.js. And what the settings.js does basically is, and I have, again, folks, all of this code, don't worry about it at all. I have pasted it in the Slack channel, right? So just go in here to this link and you can copy paste the code from here. Okay, if you want. Now, once, yeah, so this is the code, and let me just pull up the settings.js quickly from here. This is how the settings.js file looks like. Okay, let me just quickly save it. Settings.js. And once we are inside settings.js, this is a very simple settings file where you have like the GameOn API key, then you have the match ID, then you have the tournament ID, you have the app build type, game avatar base URL, the leader background image URL. So you have like a lot of variable keys in here, right? Now, for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to be just putting in my value in here, and I'll make sure that I'm saving it. But here is what you would get all those keys from. So GameOn API key is where you will get that from this page. Go to your games, and once you click on your games, click on the details option, and this is your public API key, right? So this is the API key that you need to kind of use, right? So that is your GameOn API key. The match ID. So this is the match ID. You go inside your competition, go inside the weekly leaderboard, and once you go inside the weekly leaderboard, you will find the match ID in here. So this is the match ID, yeah. And then once the match ID is here, you also have the tournament ID. So the tournament ID is something that you get from the URL. So let me just repeat that. The match ID is here, the tournament ID is in the URL, okay, and the GameOn API key is in the GameOn console, and your games, and go to details and get the API key, right? I hope that is what we need to use in the settings, right? The app build type, there are two app build types. There is development and there is release. So when you are testing it out, keep it development, and when the skill has kind of gone to production, kind of make it to release. So the game avatar URL, so what this does is it kind of creates the base URL. You have to pass the base URL for player avatars. We are not going to be dealing with that because we don't have time to talk about visual options on the skill, right? But if you want, you can always click on this link and read more about it. I'm going to skip both of these things because we are not going to be using that. And then finally, what they are doing is they are just exporting all of these variables so that we can use it in the GameOn.js file. So that's pretty much what these two lines of code do. Now, once we go in there, what this does is they have a GameOn.js file. So this is where they are initializing the SDK. They are doing skills.gameon API client, pretty straightforward. And then they're just creating this generator where they are just defining that, hey, this is my player profile generator, and this is something that you will see them kind of using it every now and then. But what it does is basically creates a player profile with the locale and the number of unique avatars in there, right? And the base URL as well. So that is what this generator does. But what we need to focus on is this new player function, right? So this new player function is pretty cool. What we are doing here is just doing something like await client dot initialize new augmented player. So basically this is the way to create a new player, okay? And then once you create a new player, you are passing in the game API key, you are passing in the app build type, and all of these are coming in from the settings part of this JS, right? So this is where we are exporting it from there. So we are just posting it in here, right? And if you also pass in the tournament ID, what also happens is we can enter the user for enter the player into a tournament as well. So if you are just having one tournament, this is a good way to kind of pass in the tournament ID as well. Now, that is one of those things. Then you have a simple method which will get you the player profile, right? So if you want to get, once you have created the player profile, you know their avatar, you know their name, you know their ranking, you know all those stuff about them. All of that will be in this generator method called as get player profile from ID, right? So it's just a helper function for that. Then I think there's an enter match. So we are not going to be using enter match, but what this does is, so for example, enter the match for a player, assumes match and tournament are persistent. This is the most simple use case. If you are implementing recurring leaderboards, it is recommended to use something else, some other method, but we are not going to be using enter match, so let's not worry too much about it. This is the most important method, folks. This is submit score function, and what submit score basically does is you kind of pass in Alexa player and you pass in their score, and what it does is it says that, hey, Karthik has gotten like this much amount of score, right? So that's what we need to get started with, and that's the basic thing that we need to do. There are some other methods as well, like there's a get player score which we can use. There is something called as refresh player session, sorry. And what refresh player session does is basically it calls the refresh player session method, which refreshes the user's session, right? So once you get the session, user's session, if it has not expired, it's fine. But if the session with GameOn has expired, then it needs to authenticate and refresh the player session using the API key and the build type and the player ID, right? So these are the things that it takes, and we will be passing it on via this method Alexa player variable, right? So these are the methods. Like I said, there are a lot of methods in here. There's a get leaderboard method which tells basically what leaderboard they are on, right? And it also returns the Alexa APL document as well for the leaderboard. So you don't need to even make that document. If you just plug it in, the entire graphics and all are done by GameOn, so you don't need to worry about it, right? So 3 methods that we need to keep in mind: refresh player session, which refreshes the player session; get the player score, which gets the player score; and submit score. Okay, so these are the 3 important things that we need to keep in mind. Let me just copy this, and let me just come back here. Where's our code? Yeah. I think I'll just paste this into GameOn.js, right? And once I do that, I'm going to get an error here because I did not create a settings.js file. So let me create a settings.js file as well. Settings.js. And once we get the settings.js file, let me actually pull this off the screen because I need to put in certain key values that are for me, right? And where did that go? Yeah. Let me check. Yeah. Let's paste this. I think this should be working fine. Okay, so I did that so that I can just hide the keys from and don't accidentally let my keys out there. Always keep in mind, folks, don't publicly share these keys with anyone. I know I showed a couple of these keys on the stream, but I'll make sure to delete them and not use it anymore. But yeah, just make sure you're not sharing this with anyone because you might end up into someone misusing it and running into getting a huge AWS bill. So make sure you're not using that, right? Okay, so now we have 2 files, GameOn.js and settings.js. We have copy pasted all of them, right? We learned about the new player method. We learned about the lookup player profile, submit score method, get player score method, and refresh player session. These are the most important things that we need to keep in mind. Okay, now let's come into index.js, and what we are going to do in here is let's write in some code. Okay, so the way we want to handle that is if the user comes into the skill for the first time, we need to create a player profile for them. But if the user is coming back into the skill, we need to refresh their session, right? Does that make sense? The user comes into the skill for the first time, we create a GameOn profile for them. But if they come in as a repeat user, we just refresh their session. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we go about doing that? Right, so let me just bring this up here. I think I have some. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just going to write some code here. So I think we have used the SDK in here. So let's first import the GameOn.js file, right? So let's do constant GameOn is equal to require, I think, slash GameOn.js, right? So very simple. We just have GameOn variable and we are just requiring it. Okay. In fact, let me just make it G capital, right? So that's the way we have been using it. GameOn. Okay. Now, once we have done it here, what we are going to do here is, first of all, let's create a new player. Okay. So I'm going to create something called as let player is equal to persistent attributes dot player, right? Persistence attribute dot player. So remember, our persistent attributes at this time, they only have the first time key. And if you have done some of the homework, you might have the chances key as well, right? So if persistent attributes as a key like player, we are just putting that into the player field, right? And then what I'm doing here is I'm just going to define saying something like, hey, if the player is undefined, and when is this going to happen? When is the player going to be undefined? If the user is coming to the skill for the first time and they don't have a player profile set up, I'm going to say that if their player is undefined, let's create the player for them, right? And the way to create player would be do something like GameOn dot, what's the name of this method? I think GameOn dot, I think this should be a new player method. Yeah, there is a new player method, right? So where's the new player method? Yeah, the new player method, right? So what I'm going to say is, if it's a new player, just do GameOn.new player, right? But since this is an API call, always remember, folks, because it's an API call, I'm going to make an await here, an await function, okay? And we're just going to make sure that that API successfully passes on, and then we proceed forward, and we don't have to worry about all those things, right? So that is how we would handle creating a new player. But once we have created a new player, I think what we need to do is we also need to think about the next thing, which is basically if a user comes back into the skill, right, which is the first time is not undefined and the player is also not undefined, right? What we need to make sure is we kind of need to put this into the database, right? So put this player into the database. So let's do that here. Put in player option here and pass in the player variable, right? So very simple. We've created a key called as player and we are passing in player in here, right? As simple as that. And then, last but not the least, let's call the save method. In the save method, we had handler input, data to save, and last but not the least, we are just passing in the null option in here. Okay, so GameOn.new player. I hope that works. Data to save, first time false, the player, save handler input. So very simple. We are creating a new player on SDK, and once we get that value, we are saving it to the database, and then we are calling the save option here. I think we can just remove this method. Yeah. So I hope that is clear to you all. Let's see if you have any questions about it. Yeah, I think Aishwarya Verma asked to save the data like scores and date of the user when played. AWS DB is used, right? So not really. We're not using AWS DB. We are using Amazon S3 for the time being. But yeah, you can kind of use AWS DynamoDB as well. So that is something that you can use. But since we are using Alexa hosted, we are not going to DynamoDB. Okay, so we have saved it to the database. We are saving it. And what do we do next? Now we need to make sure that when the user comes back, we are kind of refreshing their session. And the way to do that is by doing something like player is equal to await. And I think GameOn had this function called as refresh player session, right? We talked about that refresh player session, and we are passing the player value in here. So what is the player value? The player value is what we saved in the database. Okay, so that's what we are doing here. Now once we have that, that's pretty much it. Let's try and see if this works so far. Okay, I'm going to open my code, come back in here, save it. Did I capture all of this correctly? I hope so. I'm going to go inside my S3 folder, and once I go inside my S3 folder, and in here there is a folder. Come back to this folder. I'll just delete this file because this file is now outdated. We don't want it for the time being. So let's just delete it. Will this be as the same player as Alexa user? Sharan and Narayan asks. No, this is not the same player, but you can connect both of them. You can say that, hey, this user ID belongs to this user. But GameOn SDK does a lot of those things for you, so you don't need to worry about that, Sharan. All right, so let's come in here. Okay, let me just close all of these tabs because I'm kind of getting my computer a bit slow. Wow. Yeah, my computer is getting a bit slow, so I just need to close a few tabs. Yeah. Okay, so I think we should be good to go. Let's deploy this. Did we deploy the code? I hope so. Let's test it out now. And let's open up the game console as well. Let me see if I can quit some games. Something. What else? I don't know. Right, so now once we come back here, okay, let's test this out. We are going to say riddle me today. It's not really Chrome, it's Brave. I kind of thought that using
Welcome to Riddle Me Today. I'm going to ask you a riddle every day and
I kind of thought that using Brave would kind of make it better, but yeah, it didn't. Right, so anyways, I think we are at that point in the code where we just executed this line of code. Yeah, what did we try? Yeah, we just tried to execute these lines of code basically, right? So this one is what should have executed now, and we should have saved it to the database, save the user information to the database. Let's come into the S3 management console. I know the keyboard is breaking my sound barrier. It's a TVS Gold keyboard with Cherry MX switches. I know it's a bit hard on some people's ears. I'll be kind of switching to a new keyboard for the streams, folks. Thanks for the feedback on that. Yeah, I think this download has happened. Let's open it up. And let's open it up in Visual Studio Code. Let's see what that file looks like, right? So there we go. So we were able to save it to the database, save the user to the database. So the player was created. So this is how the player was created, right? So you can see certain values for this player in this JSON. So the name for this player is vivaciously old-fashioned spider monkey. So what GameOn does is it gives these cool random names to your users. So you can kind of also say to them that, hey, for the purpose of this game, I'm going to call you vivaciously old-fashioned spider monkey, right? So that is something that you can do. But look at what GameOn SDK just did for us. It just created a player and it created with the name, with the avatar, with the color, with the player token, external player ID, the session ID, the session expiration date, and the score and stuff like that, right? So the name is auto generated, right? So the name is auto generated. Yes. Yeah. So now once we have done that, so I hope that was clear so far, folks. What we did just now was we just got the player created, and we could create that because of the file, the code that we just wrote here, right? Basically, player is equal to persistent attributes dot player, await GameOn dot new player, and GameOn dot refresh player session, right? That's also going to work perfectly fine. Now, once you do that, and all of this code is in here, right? So you don't need to worry about what new player does. Just use the helper files given by the GameOn team. Now, once we do that, remember yesterday we wrote this simple code where we said that if the answer was correct, we are going to be saving this, saving this to the database, and we are going to give them certain points. So here's what we are going to do. We are going to tell GameOn SDK that, hey, this user who just walked in, they got their correct answer. Let's give them like something like 10 points or 5 points or maybe 3 points, right? So that's something that we are going to be doing here. I think I see a message here about how long this session is going to be today. The session is going to be till for the next 10-15 minutes or so, because at 7:30 p.m. we've got two of my favorite people from the Alexa team, Jeff Blankenberg and Amit Jotwani, in a new series called as Alexa and Friends. So do tune in today at 7:30 p.m. Hang around for a bit. Really cool folks joining in today. All right, so now let's come back to the code. Okay, and here what I'm going to do here is, let's get the persistent attributes first of all. Okay, so persistent attributes is equal to await handler input dot attributes manager dot get persistent attributes. Okay, and then let player is equal to persistent attributes dot player, right? So we need to get that player here. Okay, and then we're going to write a very simple code here. Okay, I'm just going to try await GameOn dot submit score, and for submit score we are going to pass in the player here, and let's say 10. Excuse me folks, right? So I'm going to say GameOn dot submit score and pass in the value as player number 10, right? So player value as 10, but this points, you have to do the calculation. You can definitely do whatever calculation. Maybe if it is the first time they are answering it, the value is going to be 10. If the second time they are going to be answering it, it's going to be 5, and the last time they answer it, maybe it will be 3, right? So you can do something like that, and then maybe let's just change this to you get 10 points. Okay, and then once you kind of do that, you can also do something like get the user's player score, right? You can do something like get the user's player score and do something like GameOn dot get player score and pass in the player variable, right? So let's see what happens if we do that. Okay, player score console.log score. right? Let me just quickly copy this. I think we are doing good so far. Okay, come in here, go to the code option here. So I think Jeff has a really cool, so in his Alexa and Friends event, he's going to be talking to Amit Jotwani about how his part to becoming an Alexa evangelist. I think that's really cool. When I interviewed for this position, I was interviewed by Amit, and I've been following Amit for a long time. So I'm going to be tuning in as well. But yeah, right. So now there's a small error here, await handler input, and let me just do async handler input here. Okay, so that error goes out. Let's just do a save, and let's just do a deploy. Okay, I know this might look a bit complex and it might look like we kind of glossed over some things, but if it feels like that to you, don't hesitate to put your queries in the Slack channel. This is the best way to get your answers, questions answered, sorry. Okay, so I think we are deployed here, so let's go and test it out. I'm going to come in here, and what I'm going to do here is, first of all, let's come in here. Okay, so this was my weekly leaderboard that is right now going on. Let's open this, and you can see that right now there's no player on this leaderboard. Let's change that. Okay, let's say open, what's riddle me today, right? I keep forgetting the name of the game. Let's try this out. Yeah, okay, that's really weird. What did I do wrong? I think it kind of brought in some other code that I'm just going to quickly, give me a minute, folks. I think I had, oh yeah, I kind of got what I do. I had something to show you, and I had put it into the code, and I did not remove that. Let me just come back here quickly. Go to skill.data.js. You'll see this later on. This was basically me teaching how to use sounds, and I'll talk about that in a while. But yes, saving, deploying. How are there 4 players? It's not yet published because I have been testing it out, right? So before I've been testing it out just to make sure it works properly for this demo, and that's why you're seeing that. Open riddle me today. Are you ready for today's riddle? Yes. Piano. Right, so it says correct answer, you get 10 points. So that code is working fine. Let's come in here and let's try and reload this to see what's happening here. Right, so you can see that that player that we were working with, vivaciously old-fashioned spider monkey, they were created on the leaderboard, and they were kind of created the score. Like their score has been created on the leaderboard as well. So now what you can do is you can do things like you can keep increasing their score every now and then, and once you increase it, they will come on the top of the leaderboard. Now here's something that I wanted to show you. Now let's we have called this function called as get player score, and I kind of did a console.log as well for this. So let's just see what's the result of this log. Let's come in here. Where's the code? Yeah, let's go into the code here. Go inside the logs. I believe you can set the answer as the names as well. You can definitely do that. I think that was a question from Akash. Yes, Akash, you can do that. let's look into our logs. Now if you look into the logs, look at this score here. Let me actually just copy paste it and bring it up on the JSON file, right? Player score is 10, the rank is 1, the ordinal rank is first, and it is also sitting in the match ID, right? So this is all that is to that there, right? So you just need to create a player, okay? And once you create the player, you just need to submit their score, and once you submit the score, you can get their player score, and you can also do this, right? Remember, this GameOn.js file has some more things, like more methods. You can call those methods, and you need to pass the same player value here and get leaderboard for that matter, and it just see what that response is going to be, right? So I think that almost brings us pretty close to the next stream. So I hope at this point I'm going to wrap that up. So what we did today was we learned how to update something to the database, and once we updated something to the database, how to kind of add or delete items in from there. So I showed you that method. So make use of that method, right? At this point, our game is still not finished, and that's what we are going to be doing tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think we are going to go, we are going to spend almost an hour and a half where we are going to learn how to make the game more engaging, and how to publish the game so that everyone else can access it. So that is something that we'll be doing it, and we'll be learning about how to get your friends to test it out and some cool gamification techniques. That's what I'm going to be talking about. Now I know some of those things, I almost pieced it together. Like I said, I'm going to be wrapping up this code by writing some more fine-tuned code, and I'll be sharing that with you on the Slack channel, right? So that you can just sign up there and you can see how I have wrapped up the code and how I have written the logic, right? But yes, this was an introduction to how to integrate GameOn SDK into your skill. I hope this was useful. Do stay around for a couple of minutes, like for the next 10 minutes or so. We'll have a new stream with Jeff Blankenberg and Amit Jotwani. We'll be talking about how Amit kind of made his path to evangelism in Alexa team, right? So yes, that's pretty much it for today, folks. Do join us in the Slack channel, and last but not the least, before I leave for today, just make sure you're giving feedback for these sessions, and we'd love to hear from you about the kind of sessions that you want us to take and what else we can improve in here, right? So that is the link, alexa.design/sc feedback. It's almost 7:17, so I think in the next 5 or 10 minutes, Jeff and Amit are going to come in here, so do hang around. But yes, that's it for today. Bye folks, and I hope all of you stay